Yeah, so background for me, I've spent about over 8 years in government at the local level at the City of Philadelphia, as well as the federal level, working for the General Services Administration and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. When I worked at the City of Philadelphia, I was in charge of procurement modernization with the Chief Administrator's Office, and it's sort of a space I fell into, but a really interesting one because I learned quite a lot about how tricky it is to do procurement really well, how difficult it is to modernize a very paper-heavy, non-automated system. There was a lot of complexity, there was a lot of change management required internally across all of our departments, also externally with our vendor community. For me, I think the one thing that governments need to start doing now to stay ahead is really start to make sure they understand who their vendors are and what gaps they may have. Doing a vendor map, really figuring out who you're working with, how you're working with them, what those relationships are like, and where you may experience a gap in services helps you to stay ahead of risk, helps you to be a little bit more proactive and a little bit less reactive when it comes to the changing procurement landscape. One problem that I think we solve that folks don't even realize that they have is how to stay connected to vendors. We connect you to vast suppliers you may have never heard of, have never connected with, wouldn't even know exist, but who can provide the types of goods and services that you need to deliver for the public. Our deep connection to the vendor community and the investments that we make in making sure we're connecting vendors who want to work with government to government opportunities, regardless of where they are, is a real asset to the public sector. For me, I think the feature that brings most aha is very much likely our vendor network. I'm talking a lot about vendors because I think sometimes it's easy for procurement officials to operate within their government bubble, but we can't do anything or deliver anything if we are not maximizing public dollars by increasing our competition, and that means we need access to vendors everywhere, as many as that we can get, so that we have maximum competition. And so I feel like for a lot of the folks who work with us, that is what brings them in the door, is our deep commitment and investment in growing our vendor network. One piece of advice that I would give to public sector buyers is don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. I think procurement is a place where people are very familiar with the way of doing things, and the way of doing things is changing and will need to continue to change so that we can keep pace with what's happening. We can't just do something for the sake of doing something because we've always done it. So I would say don't be afraid to ask questions or ask why. I think that it feels hard to innovate in procurement, and I would challenge that sort of assumption that you just can't do it. It's not possible with a very highly regulated and compliant field. I think there's always room for innovation. I think how you define what innovation looks like just needs to look different. You're working in a compliant space, so you can't think totally outside the box, but you may be able to shift or change a part of the process. My go-to advice is always to think about it like a question. Tell me more. Tell me more about what's fine. And usually I would follow up with how is fine serving the folks that you serve, because procurement is very much an internally facing function. You are working with agency heads, department heads, and then ultimately your goods and services are consumed by members of the public. Just getting people to think a little bit more. How do you define fine? What does fine look like? Is fine the same for everyone? Is there a reason that you don't you aren't interested in maybe looking a little bit beyond, just some of those intro questions, I think, to get folks to think about what's currently happening and what their perception is and whether or not that perception is a shared one. If I had to describe SOVRA in one word, I would say visionary, because I think what we are trying to do is beyond just being a provider of a great product that is custom built and tailored to the needs of the public sector. I think we are trying to be a visionary thought leader in helping to inform and build up capacity in the field of public procurement. So we're not just a great product, we are leading in developing and really being an advocate of the vision of public procurement for the future. Probably the one that comes to mind is our community of practice. We're looking to create a customer-driven community of SOVRA users so that they can come together and really do things like share lessons learned, share best practices, share about their experience, more importantly, share about the problems that they're collectively working on and how they may be working with us at SOVRA to solve them. The SOVRA community of practice is really bringing together those users, those practitioners who use our products and services and really bring that conversation to how did you overcome this hurdle? We're dealing with this. We haven't yet implemented CLM. What was that experience like for you? So a place for people to come and problem solve and collectively share knowledge with each other as it may relate to the work that they do with us. What I think the Canadian market needs to know, and I think we've done a really great job of this, is SOVRA is a Canadian, proud Canadian company and really is deeply invested here in Canada. And I think that is a huge asset. We are not just US or Canadian, we have a holistic North American perspective. And I think in these volatile times, really having a deep understanding and a deep way of working across different markets is an asset. We have deep expertise in Canada, but we also have deep expertise in the United States. And when you bring that collective knowledge together, I think that just helps everybody really understand nuance in a different way. So in terms of value we deliver, I think it's really important for our customers to understand that we're not just another IT company. We're not just a vendor. We are a true partner from start to finish. Every team you engage with, every part of the process, we really want to be there with you. We understand your challenges. We understand your unique context. So you're not just getting great product, great software with us, you're getting a great human experience with someone who understands your issues, your challenges, and the way that you work, which is very highly unique to the public sector, which is why I'm incredibly proud that we are a public sector only company. I think next 3 to 5 years, I would say probably the biggest signals I'm tracking seem different, but I think are really related. One is the human piece. I think we are going to see quite a bit of turnover in staff because folks have been in procurement for a really long time. And I think what is always a challenge in government is trying to think of sort of your succession plan, your pipeline. It's something that I've seen every agency I've worked with struggle. So I think as folks near retirement and leave, I think a lot of governments haven't deeply assessed all of the risks associated with who's going to take that over. I think the other signal I am tracking is around AI. Right now, I think there's quite a lot of conversation about how AI is a one-for-one replacement for humans. As you lose people, and as you maybe don't have people to fill that head count, you can just use AI. And while I think AI is a powerful tool, I don't think in 3 to 5 years it's going to be there to immediately be a one-for-one match. And so I think these are converging signals, and I think governments really need to think about what it looks like to build up a procurement workforce. And as AI continues to evolve and get better, what does that mean for your workforce and for your team?